All right, so you should be able to see the little easel now, and look, I got blue paint on my sweater. All right, so what I've done is I've just got a little tabletop easel, and I have my journal on here, and to protect the pages, I just put palette paper, wrapped it around so it doesn't get on here, and the pages that are in the studio, the new lessons, they're all protected back here. And I just use clips to kind of hold it down. And I've got gray palette paper. This is the Gray Matters palette paper. I put that here because the colors are more true. It takes care of that. Now, if you don't have a journal to paint on, you can use canvas. Okay, you can use canvas, but after a while your canvases all start accumulating. So if you don't have a journal, take the backs of paper, like paper pads, take the backs, cardboard packing, your food packaging, and just add a layer of gesso or white paint, a few layers, just so it's not so absorbent, and paint on that. Okay, so try to avoid the canvas part. Use the canvases for your formal paintings, but use your journal or something small like this, because then you won't, if you make a mistake, who cares? But on a canvas, people tend to get nervous. Oh God, I'm gonna make a mistake on a canvas. It's acrylics, so what? Doesn't matter. Okay, doesn't matter. So what I'm gonna do, the way that I'm gonna be doing this is I've got my colors on a palette on the bottom, but I'm gonna be doing all my color mixing up here. So I'm using the DecoArt Traditions acrylics because they're thicker than the fluid acrylics. So ultramarine blue, titanium white, and then what I have is I have some gesso over here, and I'm just going to use my palette knife to put some gesso on the palette. And the reason for that is strictly just to thicken up the white. So what I'm going to do is just take about half and a little bit and mix the two together. The titanium white that I'm using, what I like to do is take the cap off the paints and let them evaporate a little bit more to make them thicker. And I didn't do it with this new bottle of titanium white, so I'm just going to thicken it up with a little bit of gesso. You can also use gesso as your permanent replacement for white. You don't have to use white paint. All right. So I also have a little container. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint the basic sky, and then without even any effort, you're going to be painting wispy clouds in here. So if you want to do this live with me, that's fine, but I recommend that you kind of watch to get an idea, because then you can focus on this and not just because your brain can only do one thing at a time. So, and while it's drying, then I'm going to go over the brushes. So all I'm doing is I'm wetting the paper, and all the lessons that are in the studio that are available now for this cloud class, I painted on raw paper. So this one here, I actually primed with a little bit of gesso, and I'm wetting it because we're going to be doing wet on wet painting. So I'm taking blue, okay, take a little bit of blue there, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up some white, big hunk of white, and I'm just going to get something started here. Just get something started, nothing fancy. In the studio, I did it a different way. I started off with white, then added paint. So this is a faster way. And I'm doing it wet on wet because you can get the most beautiful skies this way. Now, if you're painting in an environment that is super, super hot, super hot, I've got the studio lights on, and it's the paints are drying faster. You can use an extender. So the big brush. Okay, I just put just white and blue paint, then take the blue paint, and now watch. Big brush, X strokes. Okay, these X strokes. And I'm just going to be painting that, and I'm going to work my way down. And if you feel your brush dragging, what that's going to be is the paint starting to dry. Pick up water. Now, I don't know if you can see this. Watch the corner of the brush. Pick up a tiny, just touch the corner of the brush into the water. And that will help make things more fluid. So all I'm doing is I'm just going over keeping up with those X strokes. I'm going to pick up more white paint. Come down here. Get in there. Okay, you can see I'm just kind of moving. And this is, use this as a therapeutic thing. It's so calming just to blend paint. Okay, now this is drying. You can see there's a little bit of drag there. So I'm going to take some, touch into a little bit of the water, pick up some white paint. I'm going to go into a bit more blue. Now this is where some of the magic happens. So just pop some paint there. Now when I do my X strokes, I'm using a lighter touch, always fading down, dark at the top, fade down. And this is one of the easy ways to create cloud movements. Subtle, those clouds that are just super quiet. I'm just grazing the surface. Just touching. And I can take my brush, graze the surface into a different direction, which now makes the clouds look like they're going this way. If I just take a little bit more blue and put something around there. If I want to focus on this being a cloud, whoops, need blue, not white. Put something up there, just lighten the pressure. Now you can see that it's starting to dry. See all that heavy brush work? Touch the brush into a little bit of water. Come back down here and just blend. Okay, so now we have a sky that has an instant cloud. How simple was that? And because I was using those X strokes and going up and down diagonal and just changing the directions, going this way, I can change the direction by going this way. And by keeping the pressure, I mean, I'm using zero pressure on this finishing stroke, you won't get those repetitive patterns. You're going to get all this different movement. Now look at this, the movement around here. It's all different. Now I can go on and I can take my blue and I can go add more blue. And because we're working with acrylics, you can do this forever. Starting to dry, touch of water. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of white. And just feather that out. There, another cloud. So now you have something happening here. Oh, that's the other thing I forgot to mention. It's in the videos in the studio. Typically landscapes are this way. They're like landscape. I'm working portrait because that's the way that my art journal is. Okay, so you do it any way you want. Can finish up those edges a little bit. See how the page is just pulling? That's because of the paint is drying. When the paint is at a point where it's so dry, you need to either stop or add more paint. You don't want to run the risk of having the paint lift off. You can take a bit more blue. Let's just add another cloud. See how it's starting to speckle? Bit more water. Get those X strokes going. And the whole thing with this is it's so random. And it's one of the easiest ways to create clouds. And when I say easy ways, you don't have any patterns. So now all of a sudden we can have a painting here that has all these, look at these wispy clouds in there. With really, what do you think my biggest effort was in painting this? Like while I was doing the entire painting, what was I fussing with? Like it has actually nothing to do with the physical painting of the cloud. I was fussing with this. The paper was pulling up. It was so simple. And you may think, oh, it's because I've been painting for a long time. No, it's just a matter of doing that stroke, using the brush. This is what we're going to talk about now while this is drying, is using the brush. So when you're painting a gradation, something like super soft, you know, something like this, a super soft sky, you got to use a big brush. If you're painting with a little brush like this, you're going to be going and it's going to take you forever. In saying that, if you're an impressionistic artist or you're doing something abstract, that's fine. I'm talking about building a gradation, like a dark top, light bottom, or dark top to light and then light to dark if you're painting water. Okay, so I'm talking about that type of stroke. So using a big brush to make your stroke. So that has to dry. I already have a sky prepared. Let me just get my heat gun for a sec because I don't want this to pull off. And this, I don't know if I can get to show, I don't know if this will show. And as well, in the webinar, you're probably seeing the colors a little bit differently than what's on my screen. So there'll be photographs of the actual piece. And when you're painting, don't forget, your colors get darker as they dry. Your colors get darker as they dry. So keep that in mind. All right, so let's flip this puppy over. Oh, I still got paint in there. I still got paint in there. So we're going to be painting this one now. We're going to work on that. So that's more of a dark sky. And I can probably still reuse this palette paper. I can still reuse that palette paper. Oh, I just dropped my binder clip into the paint. Who cares? It's just paint. There we go. Alrighty. I'm going to talk about the brushes now. So we talked about the color, how to do a basic sky with the wispiness. So the wispy clouds, you know, those ones that are with this blue sky, you just see the wisps. So that's the one. Okay, we just used one brush and two colors. Ultramarine blue, white, and a 1-inch Aqualon brush. So it's a synthetic brush. For the actual clouds themselves, sometimes you have to think the cheaper brushes, like the dollar store brushes, are sometimes better. Okay, so Aqualon brushes, synthetic brushes, these are man-made. They're nice and soft. Okay, but for clouds, what I like to do is I like to use bristle brushes. So this is a Sable Tech brush, and this is a synthetic sable, and I use this for my portraits. It's super soft. So when I create my clouds, I'm not going to be, if I scrub the dickens out of this brush, it's going to start to break down. Okay, so detail brushes, to save some money, don't use your Aqualon or your synthetics to do all your heavy duty work. Use bristle brushes. I will tell you right now, when you're using a bristle brush, the bristles, the minute they hit water, they're going to expand and they're going to go all crazy. So what I have here is I have two different, I've got the natural bristle brushes, and then I have what's called a synthetic bristle, and this is a brush that's got the properties of a bristle, but it's made to absorb water. Okay. In the studio, the lessons I used these as well. These are just as fine, but I do know that some of you, when you use the bristle brushes, you get all upset because the brushes, they don't go back to their flat stage or they don't stay round. That's not the purpose of the brush. The brush is a workhorse brush. Okay, so I'm going to be showing you the painting with a round brush, and this is just a number 4 round. It's nothing fancy. My favorite brush I was using for clouds was my number 8 Bristle Bright, my soft grip brush, which looks like this, and it met with an accident, but when it met with the accident, it was actually worn down to about here, and it was the perfect brush. So using a rough brush, and we're going to scrub. Okay, we're going to scrub, and we're going to scrub, and we're going to scrub. That's the stroke, basically, that is going to get the job done in half the time. So that's point number 4. If you're thinking of, you know, all these fancy brushes, and some of you may have seen these types of brushes, fan brushes. Some of you may have seen Bob Ross doing his brushes like that. No, you don't need to use this. You don't need to use those. They're fine to have. Some people say, oh, you can use them for grass, but then your grass has a pattern. It always looks the same. Because of the curve, there's that bounce in here. So it always looks the same. You don't need fan brushes. Round brushes and some flats. And then, of course, your liners. Okay, so we're going to be doing our scrubbing. So watch what I'm going to do. Because we already have our blue on here, we're just going to work with a white cloud. Now, I typically like to work from a reference photo, and I turned my phone off, so I don't have a reference photo now. Okay, so I'm going to wing it in my head. All I'm going to do is just take white. I'm just going to take white, and I'm working it into the brush, and we're going to start right here. Okay, so look what I'm doing. Can you imagine how quick your brush would be damaged if you did this with, let's say, let me get a bigger version. If you use this type of brush, or even the Aqualon brushes, your brushes would break down so fast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, and this is also covered in the studio lessons, I want to keep the brightness more here, but all this stuff, I'm going to fade this out until I have no paint left. So what we're looking at, what we don't want those patterns. So you can see what I'm doing here is I'm scrubbing, and we want a little bit of excess coming out here. Let's really work that. You want to, what you don't want is you don't want to paint a cloud like that. Okay, we don't want that type of cloud. And sometimes when we're painting, we won't even know about it. We'll start painting one layer, then we'll work the other layer. We'll start doing the same patterns over and over again. That's what we don't want. Okay, so we start off with the first layer, and the paint is lifting up a little bit here. I don't know if you can see that. It's lifting up a little bit because I didn't let it dry. And I don't want to add water to this. I don't want to add water to this because it's going to make it thin. So I'm going to give that a second to set up. So this is another thing, point number 5, why the values and colors you use will make or break your painting. You need to be able to understand the transparencies, the opacities of your paint. Titanium white is opaque, but by using this brush, you're scrubbing it up, and then you're turning, and it's becoming transparent. Okay? It's becoming transparent. And clouds, they have those little runoff pieces here. Putting that in there. Okay? There you go. There's your cloud. We're going to keep going, though. We're not going to leave it like that. So, by doing all that scrubbing, to get all that excess off, you're creating all those extra little wispy things happening in the background. And like I said, and by knowing, like if you did this with the fluid acrylics, whether it was the DecoArt Media Fluid Acrylics or the Golden Fluid Acrylics, you're probably not going to get the same effect because those paints are already really watery. So if you have gesso, use that. Use that. And you're just going to do this until the cows come home. You're just going to keep going until you have nothing left. Now, I can also guarantee as you're doing this, you're going to have bristles that are going to get all bent out of shape. That's normal. That's what the purpose of the brush is. That's why a lot of the natural bristle brushes, they're less expensive than these types of brushes here. They're less expensive because they're natural. And some of them are pig hair. You use pig hair to make these, hog hair. And so that's why they're less expensive. So when you're looking at a bristle brush, I probably wouldn't say don't use dollar store stuff because the glue used is really weak. But if you go to the art store, don't get the most expensive, okay? Especially if it's a workhorse brush, because these will end up breaking down, and don't throw them away because you can use them for something else. And you want to add water to this only at the end when you're cleaning. When you're cleaning your brush or at the very end. But you don't want the acrylics to stay in your brush. Okay, so you want to keep doing something. So if I need to, now these are wooden handles. If I drop this in water and left it there for quite a while, the water will get into the ferrule, this thing here, and will crack the handles. That's why I like using the Majestic for, well, for this, for as a Taklon, it's got an acrylic handle. It won't crack. So that's why it's in the water. So now, if I just want to dip that brush in water, I can dip it in water and then just let it sit without doing anything with it. But if you're cleaning it, take as much paint as you can out of the brush first, and then as you, let me just quickly just do a rinse and just do a gentle squeeze. And of course the brush didn't do what I was hoping. I was hoping the brush was going to go pfft, and it didn't. Okay, it still stayed the same shape. The flat brushes, you notice that a lot more with. It's these types of brushes here, these flat ones, that when they get into the water, they kind of go all over. So this nice chisel edge doesn't really last. Okay. Let me just hit that with the heat gun just for a quick sec. All right. So now what we can do is we can take a little bit more white. Now we can go back in here. And in the studio, I cover the clouds aren't white. I've got some clouds with the silver linings. We're using purple and violets and crimsons. I didn't want the whole lesson to be about color mixing though. So now I'm starting in the middle, and I'm just basically picking now where's the sun going to be. The sun is going to be right here. Okay, so facing this way. So this side is going to be the brighter side. So I'm going to put a little bit more paint there, and I'm going to keep working that out. And you notice I'm not going over the exact same place, because what's happening now is as I'm moving that around, I'm getting some darks in here. And always fuzz, always fuzz. Take a bit more white. And I can go over here. And I'm trying to avoid looking. So now I have a pattern already. Can you guys see the pattern? Right here. Without even trying, I have a pattern. So got to break that up. I also have a line right there. Got to break that up. Easy peasy. So depending on where you want to break that line, I could add another cloud. Like that. And as I'm scrubbing, so you can see the paint becoming more transparent, I'm getting something light in here. Here we go. And I can just change that up. There we go. So that pattern's broken. Okay, so there's you know, a way to get that going. And I'm going to hit a little bit of white on here as well, just on the one side. Fuzz that out. So you're just putting the white where the sun's coming this way. So wherever this is touching, so it's touching here, there's going to be white, it's touching here. And just look at the areas that you're going to get all those little poofs of color. Okay, so I mean, you can go on and on and on and create some little offshoots, those little offshoot clouds. I'm just going to keep going in this. And you're going to have a high def photograph of this as well. And just little, like you can see this, there's still, okay, I'm running out of paint now, so this is fine. But you can do a lot. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of effort just to scrub for that. So with that being said, now what I can do is take, it might get in the way, take a little bit of Hansa yellow light. I'm going to put that brush in I'm going to take that brush, just rinse it like this, and I'm going to just rest it like this here. Okay? All right. So, where's my... Oh, I'll use this one. So I've got my little Aqualon brush now. So we can add further details to this now. Okay, so we have a pretty cloud here, and the photograph you'll see will be a lot prettier, and the high definition camera will show really blue. I think what you guys are seeing is a very light pale color, and that may be, is it light pale, the clouds at the painting you're seeing? I think it's light pale. Let me see if I can adjust. Oh, there we go. That's a bit dark now. Whoops. We don't want that, right? Here we go. It's a little bit bluer than that. That's the problem with the webinars, is that what you're seeing is going through the internet all over the place. So that's, but you'll be able to see with the live, the high def picture. So with this as well, now you can take your little Aqualon brush and see that yellow that I put on there? You don't need that much. You don't need that much. What you want to do, what you want to do is you want to take some white paint and you want to tint it. And when I say tint, let's see if I have some scrap paper. You want to, that's still too yellow. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of cleaning my brush, loading it again with more white paint and going in here. And this is a way to clean your brush without putting it in water. Because every time you load with the color you want, it cancels out what was already in there. So what I'm looking for is just a clean color. I don't want white. I want something that's just a little bit, that's still a little bit too yellow. So if you had to load the corner of the brush with just a little bit of yellow. Okay, so there we go. So what I'm going to do now is just tap a little bit of that yellow, just to add a little bit of dimension. And I'm not scrubbing because I want it to be thick. And when I put this on now, we know that paint's going to dry darker. I'm not going to go and paint the whole thing. I need to see, okay, what's this looking like? Like on my camera that's way over here, my monitor, this looks really yellow, but what I'm seeing, it's not that yellow. So and what you're seeing is probably even something even different. Okay, so when putting it on, you have to make sure that you fuzz that bottom. So we're just hitting that with a little bit of thicker paint. Just a little bit of thicker paint, which creates, oh, that's too much yellow. Let me just get that stuff out of the brush. Load with more white. That's a little bit. And without knowing your color theory, you're going to end up getting green clouds. Yellow and blue make what? Green. So this is why I want to apply it thickly. Is that a word? Thickly? Thickly. And we get those nice little hits of color. Now in the videos that I did, you're going to see as well where I did a silver lining, so a very a strong edge on there, and those are for, you can do for storm clouds or dark clouds. So if I'm going to come here now and I'm looking at this thing, yeah, okay, I'm not liking what I did here. So to fix it, and you guys know that I don't edit out my mistakes or anything that I do on purpose because I want to show you how to fix it. I don't edit out. So all I'm going to do is take some white paint, whether you use gesso or paint, a speck of blue just to tint it a bit. And I can come here and just go back over and reform the cloud. wow, that is so beautiful. And I'm just reforming it. I didn't like that bounce that was in there because it was on the very edge. So just, and so you can see as I'm scrubbing here, some of that paint is coming off. You know what? I already know what I can do with this paint, so I'm just going to make up a little bit more of that blue. And I can take some of that paint that's in my brush. And now what I'm doing is I'm just adding a little bit of shadow in there. Bit more blue. Again, with the bristle brush. And by kind of being like you've had too much coffee, like, is that you don't get that pattern. And that's a noise you have to make when painting. So just have fun with it. And you get all these different patterns. And so look at the brush now, it's all smushed. This is my round brush, it's all smushed. And I just want to break that up a little bit. Okay, I'm not liking what I have here, so how do we fix that? Yeah, it's like the blue is too spotty, so how can we fix that? To do an instant blend, I want to avoid the water. I can keep going and going and going, but I can just pick up a tad of white and come back in here. Now, if you were doing your painting, your clouds, and that, let's say with a violet sky or something, then you would use that violet color in here. And and that's the videos that are available. That does show that. But look at that. Now how I just added, you like that, Annie, eh? So just by adding some of that background sky color with a bit of white, look what I created here. I now created a cloud here that's sitting on top of this one here. It's more in front, just by adding back some shadow. So it's like you're painting the negative space. Okay, so now here. So I don't know if you guys can see that. There's a big hair sticking out there. So when these hairs get all, okay, well, that shouldn't have broken so easily, but when the hairs get all splayed out, and even after you clean them, if they're kind of all like this, and if there's one or two that really bother you, you know what to do? You cut the hair. Just cut that one hair, because it'll drive you bat crap crazy. It'll drive you crazy. So just get rid of the hair. I just pulled it off. Okay. So I can just scrub light. Now I'm scrubbing very lightly. Scrub a little bit more dark in there. And then come in here and I can just put a little bit more of that blue. And you guys won't see it in the webinar. You'll see it in the high def recording. What I have here now, this blue, has a slight tint of green, a tiny tint of green. And we know why, right? I'll let you guys answer that. I'm going to come back here and just a bit of a scrub there. You know why some of that blue that I had was a little bit green? I can take a little bit more white and I can scrub over there to brighten that up a little bit. It all depends on the photograph that you're using as well. Some of the photographs, exactly, the yellow, yes, yes. Because some of the yellow that was here wasn't dry, blended in with the blue. But you know what? It's fine. It's totally fine. Some of the skies that in the photographs I've shown you, I think it was the one where it was the King's Forest Golf Course. I think it was that one. The sky actually has green in it. And what it is if you think of using what's in the bottom of the sky, think of it like a reflection, a mirror. So that's why when you're painting water, you start dark at the top, light, you got your horizon line, then light to dark. So you're mirroring what's in the sky, you're kind of like flipping it. So same thing with the golf course. I'm thinking, well, some of the green from the golf course must be reflecting something in the sky. I don't know. All I know is that there's green in the sky. It also takes into account the environment, how far back you're looking, atmospheric perspective. You've got all that dust particles in that. Stuff that's further off in the distance is grayer and lighter. So there's a whole bunch of other things in factor. What I like to do, look at what I'm painting, and that's what I use. Fairly simple. Okay, so there we go. So we covered off the pattern. So how to avoid that pattern. So it's like shake, shake, shake. Wherever the clouds that are the most predominant, where they're really in like strong, hitting that sun, you want more white in that. You're going to fuzz everything else out into the background, and that makes your paints transparent. That makes your application transparent, which covers off point number 5. And by knowing the opacities of your paints, what your paints can do, why using gesso is fine because it's thicker and more opaque, you know, all that stuff with the paint and colors, and knowing some of your color theory, why that's going to help your paintings, and not just the clouds, but anything really, how it's going to make more sense. Specifically for the clouds, is silver linings in clouds are typically a golden yellow. If you put silver linings against blue, you're going to get green. If you're using what you see in the studio, the violet stormy skies, which are purples, I use kind of like an orange for a silver lining. What happens when you take orange and purple? You get mud. So in there I covered that up. So it's important to know your colors. It's important to know your opacities. It's important to know your brushes. Expensive is not necessarily better. Okay. Now this is I know what it is, but there's no name on it. This is the brush, those art kits that I designed for, actually no, Royal and Nickel hired me to create designs for all these art kits. And the brushes are not the best. Just ask Debbie. The brushes are not the best. This is one of the brushes that came in the oil kit. And I thought, oh, this is the first time I'm using it because it was a perfect brush. This is the first time I'm using it. I thought, I'm going to use it for this. It's perfect. And these brushes are not expensive. They're not expensive. I mean, I can go to Curry's and Annie, I don't know if you, no, there is no Curry's out there. Probably, I don't know if there's just Curry's, Ottawa. Maybe a Curry's in Ottawa. Curry's has their own brand of brushes, and even, what's the other one? Dick Blick, I think, and Jerry's Artorama. I think they have their own branded brushes, the bristles. They're usually pretty good because they're looking for something that's less expensive. So expensive is not necessarily always better. Okay. So point number 1, the number 1 problem artists have when painting clouds, repetition. You do not want repetition. Okay. Then why you need to learn to observe. Look at clouds. I showed you the pictures, the different things. Be outside when it's windy. Look at how the clouds are moving, because you'll see when clouds move in front of the other what they're doing. And listen to the wind. Listen to the wind, because you'll see as the wind gets stronger, look up and you'll see different types of shapes creating. I think Mother Nature is perfect, but sometimes Mother Nature also gets patterns in the clouds. We don't want those. So snap as many pictures as you can. And because now we're in the world of digital photography, you don't need to waste money on those spools of film. I even had a 4x5 camera where the sheets, the 4x5 negatives. Yeah, that's how I was taking pictures really young, and you were always afraid of wasting film. With digital photography, there's no such thing. Now, as well, when you're taking your pictures, I'm going to create a separate video for this, is how to use you don't need expensive software to change up your pictures. Let's say you've got a picture that has a nice shape but crappy color. I'm going to do a video to show you how to use a desktop app and a phone app, which are free and made by reputable companies, how to change up some of the saturation, which is the tense color, in your photos to make it a little bit nicer. Okay. Then the different types of clouds was point number 3. That I put in the studio because of all the scientific jargon. I didn't want to bore you with that, so that takes care of that. So we covered off number 1, the problem. Number 2, why you need to learn to observe. Number 3, the different types of clouds in the studio. Number 4, the brushes that get the job done. Number 5, but the values and color. And then number 6, the demo. So we covered off everything for you, and we also did it 10 minutes early. So there we go. And I want to just give you a quick peek. Oh, does anyone know why I'm not painting this? This is a pop quiz to see actually who's listening. Why am I not painting this on my table, flat on my table with my overhead camera? Does anybody know why I'm not doing it that way? I've never taught that. Well, did I teach that? In the actual lessons, I may have mentioned it. Okay, so let me just take all that. These are great little envelopes that you can make to protect. Wax paper sometimes doesn't necessarily work. And now I'm going to take this big one off. Get that one off. Come on. All right. Okay, so this is from the sky painting class, which is also, that's also in the studio. And I was basically just showed when I was doing that lesson. This is the actual private lesson I did with Debbie. We were testing technology. And so I just had her, she was available like on an instant. Thank you, Debbie, to help me test out the technology. But so these are, so there's a lesson, purple sky, dark clouds in here. So that's the whole thing about the actual cloud technique. Then we went on to creating the storm clouds with the sunburst behind. Very impressionistic, very thick. And then we boost up purple clouds, orange sky with the clouds, and then we throw in a mountain in the background. That's lesson number 3. So when you're going through, though, they're in the right order. So there's this one first, which shows the technique of the clouds. Then this one, putting light behind the clouds, and then those silver linings. And then kind of combining the techniques together, changing up the colors, and then just adding something in the back just to make it more interesting. So you can start off with techniques, then actually create a painting. What I didn't cover, and I mentioned it in the video, is in the bottom here, where it's the reflection of the trees, and we go over painting water in here. That's for a different lesson that's going to be covered in the future. I didn't cover that as well, but ideally what you want to do is, you're painting water, you're going to mimic what's up here, down here. So a bit of the purple down here, a little bit of the orange here, and then you're going to basically the trees, the mountain reflection here, and the trees. And that usually is all about technique. It's all about the brush technique. Didn't cover that because the focus was on this.